look at yeah, I'm going to do a live now. We can adjust it on your end. Right? Yeah, man. It's up. Alright, cool. Alright, yeah, cool. Alright, so good night to everyone. So tomorrow is your Csec exam, your multiple choice exam, and what I want to do is just to do quickly 60 common multiple choice questions, and let's hope that a number of those questions are seen in the exam tomorrow. So if that happens, then we'll be smiling. Alright, so let's get started. So very common question, we have negative 3 all squared plus negative 2 in brackets all squared. So negative 3 in brackets all squared plus negative 2 in brackets all squared. We know this is what? Negative 3 by negative 3 plus negative 2 by negative 2. Negative 3 by negative 3 is positive 9. Plus negative 2 by negative 2 is positive 4. And we know 9 plus 4 will give us 13. So we know the answer for this one will be C. Alright, so question 1C. Let's look at the second. So second question we have, what percentage of 40 is 8? So what percentage? Of course, question 2, what percentage? You can say x percent of 40 is equal to 8. So x percent is the same as x all over 100 of 40 is equal to 8. So of course needs to multiply. We know this will be 0 go, 0 go. So we know 2 to 4, 2 to 10 is 5. So we have 2x over 5 is equal to 8. And I can put 8 over 1. And at this point I can cross multiply to get 2x is equal to 40. And I can divide both sides by 2. X is 20. So we know what percentage of 40 is 8, that's 20%. B. So 2B. Let's look at question 3. When 0.45 is written as a common fraction in its simplest form, the result is, so 3, 0.45 as a common fraction, you know this is tenths, that's hundreds. So this is 45 all over 100. So we know that this can be simplified to 5 into 45 is 9, 5 into 100 is 20, and therefore we're going to get 9 all over 20, question 3, it's A. Let's move on to question 4. So doing 60 quick multiple choice questions. Let's hope that these questions are seen in the exam tomorrow. If 235 by 48.7 is equal to 11,444.5, then 2.35 by 4.87 is equal to. So we know if we have 235 times 48.7 is equal to 11444.5. Then 235 becomes 2.35. Well, it will become 2.35 if I take the point which is understood after 5 and I move it 2 places to the left. So this now becomes 2.35 by 10 to the power of 2 because I move it 2 places to the left. And this will be times 48.7 by 48.7. For it to become 4.87, I have to move this 1 place to the left. So this will become 4.87 by 10 to the power of 1. Yeah? So you basically have 10 to the power of 2 by 10 to the power of 1 is 10 to the power of 3. So I'm going to multiply my 11,444.5 by 10 to the power of 3, which means I'm going to move this decimal point 3 places to the left. So this will be 11444.5. So I'm going to move it 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to get 11.4445. Whose answer there will be A. Let's look at question 5. A test was marked out of 80. A boy scored 60% of the marks on the test. How many marks did he score? So 5. If a boy scored 60% of the marks, then 60% of 80, that is 60 all over 100 times 80. So we're going to get 2 zeros go, zeros cancel, 6 by 8 will give us 48. So we know that answer there will be B. So we move on to question 6. So looking at some of the common questions that we can see in the exam paper. Question 6. Dan sold 40 concert tickets in 5 days. Each day he sold 3 tickets more than the previous day. So the number of tickets he sold on the 3rd day is, so Dan sold 40 tickets in 5 days. So in 5 days we have, alright, this is my 1st day, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th day, right? So if he sold 40 tickets in 5 days, and each day he sold 3 tickets more. So let's assume that the 1st day he sold X tickets. And the 2nd day, of course, they said each day he sold 3 tickets more. The 2nd day is going to be X plus 3. So the 3rd day we're going to keep adding 3. So if I add 3 to this, it becomes X plus 6. If I add 3, it becomes X plus 9. If I add 3, it becomes X plus 12. Good? So what we can do here, we can create an equation to help us to find X, which in turn will help us to determine how many tickets he sold on the 3rd day. So if he sold 40 concert tickets, then our 40 concert tickets will be equal to the number of tickets he sold on the 1st day, plus how many he sold on the 2nd, plus how many he sold on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we have created an equation here where we can comfortably find the value of X. So this is 40 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 x's, so that's 5x. This is 3 plus 6 is 9, 9 plus 9 is 18, 18 plus 12 will give us 30. And what we can do here is find X by simply transposing. I'll take my plus 30, I'll put it on the left, so this becomes 40 subtract 30 is equal to 5x. 40 subtract 30 will give us 10 is equal to 5x, and then I can divide both sides by 5, so I'm going to get x as 2. So if x is equal to 2, then the number of tickets sold on the 3rd day, the number of tickets will be, this is our 3rd day, it is x plus 6, and if x is 2, then it's 2 plus 6, which will be 8 tickets. So for question 6, the answer is A. Right, so common questions we're looking at, and let's hope that we see these questions tomorrow. If not, if they make minor changes, at least we want to understand how to work it out, yeah, to get the right answer. Alright, let's look at 7. Which of the following set is defined by negative 2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4. So we have negative 2 less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4. So what we have here is a combined inequality, and we can break it up, we can separate it. This is the same as x is less than or equal to 4, so I'll leave that as is. And negative 2 less than or equal to x is the same as x being greater than or equal to negative 2. So this is negative 2 less than or equal to x can be rewritten as x is greater than or equal to negative 2. And we'll have x is less than or equal to 4. And what this simply means, if we have x is greater than or equal to negative 2, it means we're looking at negative 2 and all numbers greater than negative 2. So negative 2, we have negative 1, which is greater than negative 2. We have 0, we have 1, 2, 3, and of course we have x less than or equal to 4. So of course we're including 4 and everything that is less than it. And of course it must fall within that range between negative 2 and 4. So we're looking at negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whose answer there is D. So 7D. So let's look at 8. So common questions we hope to see in the exam tomorrow, and at least have some understanding how to work it out. If Q is equal to ABC, how many subsets can be obtained from the set Q? So you want to determine the number of subsets. So to find the number of subsets can be found by simply using the formula 2 to the power of n. And n there will be the number of elements. Good? So n is the number of elements. So n is the number of elements. And how many elements we have in this set? 1, 2, 3. So that's 2 to the power of 3, yeah, which is D. Sometimes they'll bring this question and they will actually give the number. So 2 to the power of 3, no, it's 2 by itself 3 times, which is 8, but they have it as 2 to the power of 3. Alright, let's look at question 9. So 9. The set of positive integers is an example of. So we are talking about positive integers, so they didn't specify, you know, how many positive integers. They just simply stated the set of positive integers. So you know that, of course, the integers, you're looking at positive numbers, you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, dot, 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 dot. You don't know where it's going to stop, a set of positive integers. And this set is said to be an infinite set because we are continuing, there's continuity, but we don't know where we're going to end. Alright, so therefore, this is an infinite set, which is C. So looking at question 10. Right, so common question again. If the number of elements in the universal set is 25, so the number of elements in set A is 14, the number of elements in B is 15, the number of elements in A intersect B is equal to 6. What will be the number of elements in A union B? So the number of elements in A union B, of course, we have to know this formula for the union of two sets. It's going to be the number of elements in A plus the number of elements in B subtract the number of elements in A intersect B. We have all the details there. We have the number of elements in A will be 14 plus the number of elements in B will be 15 subtract the number of elements in A intersect B will be 6. So we know this will be what? 14 plus 15 is 29. Subtract 6, which will give us 23. Whose answer there is C? So 10, looking at C. Let's look at 11. Right, so set questions, so they must bring a number of set questions. So item 11 refers to the following Venn diagram. Very common question here. The shaded area represents, if we have the shaded area, that is the region outside of set P, that there simply will be P complement, which will be the region outside of the set P. You have the set P and you have everything shaded outside of that set. So it represents the complement of your set P, which is denoted by E. So 11. E. So let's look at 12. Right, so the 30 students in Teacher's May's class have either a dog or a cat or none of the two. 16 students have a dog, 12 students have a cat, and the remainder have neither a cat nor a dog. Which of the following Venn diagrams correctly represent the information? So in this case, this is a question that they bring regularly, and sometimes they may word it differently, so we have to be very careful. Sometimes they'll word this question when we talk about all the students who have cats have dogs, Alright, that's where you know subsets one circle inside of another, so the word all wasn't used. They may talk about you know that students who have both cats and dogs, so nothing was mentioned about both. And in this case, you know, we just simply mentioned 12 students have, in fact 16 students have dogs, 12 students have cats. There's nothing stated here about both having cats and dogs. So 16 have dogs, 12 have cats, total separation, there's joint sets there. And of course we have 2 students who will have no cats, no dogs, because we know 16 plus 12 is 28, and we have 30 students in this maze class, so 28 from 30 will give us 2. So in this case, the Venn diagram we're looking at to represent will be, this is a universal, so we're looking at 2 disjoint sets, 16, 12, and this is 2. Yeah, we have dogs, we have cats, whose answer there is D. Looking at question 13. Right, at a bank EC, $2.60 is equivalent to US $1. For every US $1 exchange, EC 10 cents is deducted as an exchange fee. How much EC dollars will Leon receive if he exchanges US $100? So how much EC dollars Leon will receive if he exchanges US $100? So of course, we're looking at currency here, and what we want to do is ensure we know what is the exchange rate. So it's stated here EC $2.60 is equal to US $1. So we know what's the conversion rate there, right? So if we have to determine how much 100 US will be equivalent to in EC, we have to use our exchange rate to help us to make that conversion. So we know that US $1 is equal to EC $2.60. Remember, what you have to convert to always go on the right of the relationship. So if US $1 is equal to EC $2.60, then US $100 will be equal to what? We're going to multiply $2.60 EC by 100. So therefore, $2.60 EC by 100 will give us 260 EC. Right? $260 EC. But it was also stated for every 1 US exchange, EC 10 cents is deducted for an exchange fee. As an exchange fee. So therefore, if Leon exchange 100 US, and for every 1 US exchange, EC 10 cents is deducted, then how much EC was deducted? So EC dollars deducted will be to multiply 10 cents by 100 US. Alright? And that will give us what? When we multiply 10 cents EC, right, by our 100, we are going to get what? We are going to get here, this will give us 1, 2, this will give us 10 EC. Yeah? So EC $10. So how much EC dollars will Leon receive after exchange US 100? So the amount of EC Leon received is going to be simply to subtract $10 from 260, which will give us $250, whose answer there is C. Alright, so that's how much EC Leon will receive, C, 250. So let's move on to question 14. So common questions. So 14 it states, a dress which costs $1,800 is being sold at a discount of 10%. The amount of the discount, so just what's the discount? So the discount will be, so just simply find 10% of $1,800. So that will be 10 all over 100 times 1,800. And what are we going to get? My 2 zeros go, those two cancel. 18 by 10 will give us $180. So that will be your discount, which is 180, whose answer is C. So they didn't ask the discounted price, right? They asked the discounted, the amount of the discount. So let's look at 15. Common question again, and question before. The cash price of a television set is $350. When bought on hire purchase, a deposit of $35 is required, followed by 12 monthly payments of $30. How much is saved by paying cash? So how much is saved by paying cash? Yeah? What are we going to do here? Clearly, if it's bought on hire purchase, obviously you're going to pay more than the cash price. The cash price is what? $350. And if you buy something on hire purchase, you always have to make a deposit, and the remaining money is paid in what? Equal monthly payments. Okay? So the cash price here, cash price is $350. So what is the hire purchase price? So the hire purchase price will be your deposit of $35 plus the remaining money, which is paid in monthly installments, right? Equal monthly installments. So it's paid in 12 months and it's $30 per month. So therefore the hire purchase price here will be $35 plus 12 by 30 will be $360. And therefore, $35 plus $360, that will give us $395. So when you buy it on hire purchase, that's how much you're going to pay. So if they ask how much is saved by paying cash, so if you pay in cash, how much money you're going to save as opposed to buying hire purchase. So amount saved will be to subtract $350 from $395, and that will give us $45. So that's the amount saved, whose answer there is D. Alright, so common questions. Let's make sure we see it, we're able to answer it, but if not, then we make minor changes, we know how to work it out. Alright? So let's look at 16. Right, so a company employs 20 persons as gardeners and clerks. The mean daily wage of all employees is $22.40. So that's the average daily wage. If each of the 12 gardeners is paid $26 per day, then the daily amount paid to each of the 8 clerks is. So a company employs 20 persons as gardeners and the mean daily, so average. So we know to find average, the average will be where you take, in this case, we're going to take the total amount of money and we're going to divide it by the number of persons, so we'll know what is the average amount paid. So we know what's the average amount paid. So your average or mean is the, it's the sum of all observations divided by the total number of observations. You have your mean, the average daily wage is $22.40. We don't know what is the total amount of money, and it's important for us to find the total amount of money that is paid to these 20 employees. So the total amount of money, we don't know, let's call it X. We have about 20 employees. Yeah? So when we divide 20 to the total amount of money to be paid, it will give us the average amount of money each employee will get. Yeah? So for us to find the total amount of money paid to the 20 employees, we can simply cross multiply here. So 1 by X will give us X. And we're going to multiply $22.40 by 20. So $22.40 by 20. So let's quickly use my calculator to save time. That would be $448. Is the total amount that will be paid to the employees. But it's stated here, if each of the 12 gardeners is paid $26 per day, right? So let's calculate how much the gardeners will get. So gardeners, so 12 gardeners will be paid what? It's going to be $26 by 12, and 26 by 12 will give us what? 26 by 12 will give us $312. So the gardeners are paid $312, and the total amount paid to all employees, for all employees, the total amount paid is $480. Then we can calculate how much will be paid to your clerks, right? So your 8 clerks will be simply to subtract 312 from 480, from 448. So 312 from 448 will give us what? This will be for your 8 clerks. That's 136. So therefore the question asks, what is the amount paid to each of the 8 clerks? So each of 8 clerks, so we know that the 8 clerks will get this amount. So therefore each or one clerk will be equal to each clerk, which is one clerk will be to divide 136 by 8. And when we divide 136 by 8, we're going to get $17 each clerk will be paid. Alright, so we should understand how to work out this question. Of course, we have to work out what is the total amount of money paid to all 20 employees, which is $448. We know the 12 gardeners, each one is paid $26. We can work out the total amount paid to the 12 gardeners. When we subtract that amount from the total amount paid, we're going to have the total amount paid to your 8 clerks. And therefore, you can determine what one clerk will be paid, which is to divide 8 into 136 to give you $17, and that's C. Alright? So common questions, and let's make sure we understand how to work it out. So if they make minor changes, we know what to do. And they sometimes do that, right? So CXE or CSEC sometimes do that. Make minor changes to throw you off. So let's make sure we know how to work it out. Alright, let's move on to the next 17. So the value of a plot of land is $18,000. Land tax is charged at a rate of 70 cents per $100 value. What is the total amount of tax paid for the land? Alright, so another common question. So therefore, if land tax is charged at 70 cents per $100 value, let's determine how many $100 we can obtain from our $18,000, right? So number of $100 from 18,000 will be to simply divide 100 into 18,000, which will give us 180 $100 bills, right? So therefore, we know if land tax is charged at a rate of 70 cents per 100, and we know we have 180 of them, then it's going to be the land tax, therefore, will be to multiply 70 cents by 180. Yeah? And 70 cents by 180. That will give us $126. Whose answer is C? So another common question, right? We see in the consumer arithmetic part of the paper. Yeah? So let's look at question 18. Right. If the simple interest on 900 at 4% per annum for T years is $108, what is the value of T? What is the time? What is the time taken? Right? So we know that to find time, very important for us to know to find time, because I like to bring these simple interest questions. It is going to be 100 times the interest over the principal by the rate. Good? So if the simple interest on $900 at 4% per annum for T years is 108, so the simple interest, it is 108, and the 900, can't mix up the two, the $900 will be the principal, right? That's the principal, and we know the rate is always represented as a percentage, that will be 4, so we know this will be 100 times your interest, which will be 108, over the principal, which is 900, by your rate, which is 4%. So we work that out, we're going to get the time to be equal to 0 go, 0 go, 0 go, 0 go. 9 into 108 will give us what? 9 into 108, that's 1, remainder 1, 9 into 18, 2, and 4 into 12 is 3. So it's going to take 3 years, right, for that $900 to achieve an interest of $108, all right? So that answer there is 18B. So let's move on to next. So another common question. It states here, at the end of any year, a car is worth 5% less than what it was worth at the beginning of the year. If a car was worth $9,500 in December 2016, then what was its value in January 2016? All right? So we have in January 2016, we don't know what's the value of the car, but let's equate that to 100%. The value of the car, let's equate that to 100%. Done? But it states now, at the end of any year, a car is worth 5% less than what it was worth at the beginning of the year. So if at the beginning of the year, the percentage is represented by 100%, and at the end of the year, it's worth 5% less. So 5% less means in December, of course, we're looking at, so in December 2016, 5% less. Then that 100% will be reduced to what? That 100% will be reduced to 95%. Good? So in December, the car was worth $9,500. Yeah? So we know that we have established a relationship here. 95% is equal to 9,500. This is in the month of December, end of the year. So what is the value of the vehicle at the beginning of the year? So we know that 95% is equal to 9,500. 1% will be 9,500 over 95, and therefore 100% will help us to determine what is the value of the car at the beginning of the year. That's 9,500 over 95 times 100. And of course, 95 into 95 is 1. 100 by 100 will be 1 with 4 zeros, which is $10,000. Whose answer there is B. Another common question, very common question. So make sure we can recognize all the common questions that we can possibly see in the exam and how to work it out. Let's look at 20. So 20. Right, so a man's regular pay is $3 per hour up to 40 hours. overtime is twice the payment for regular time. He was paid $216. How many hours overtime did he work? Alright, so this man, his regular pay is $3 per hour for 40 hours. So that regular pay is the same as his, we call it the basic wage. So therefore his regular pay, so his regular pay or his basic wage will be to take how much he's paid per hour multiplied by the number of hours worked. 3 by 40, which is $120. Good? Now, it says here overtime is twice the payment for the regular time. Alright? So, we know that overtime, anytime you work overtime, you obviously will be paid more per hour for the additional hours work, right? When you work overtime. But at the end of this period of work, he is paid $216. So let's determine what will be his overtime wage. So a combination of basic wage and the overtime wage is known as a gross wage. The gross wage is your basic wage plus the overtime wage. Right? So this man's gross wage, he was paid $216. That's a combination of the two wages. That's the gross wage, and the overtime wage and the basic wage will make up your gross wage. His basic wage is $120. So let's work out what's the overtime wage. Because when we work on the overtime wage, we can determine how much hours he was paid for working overtime, right? So this overtime wage will be to subtract the basic wage from the gross wage, total amount. And his overtime wage will now be what? That is $216 minus $120, which is $96. That's his overtime wage. So when they ask us now, how many hours did he work overtime? So to determine how many hours he worked overtime, his overtime wage is equal to the overtime rate. That's how many hours he worked for, how much money he worked for per hour. That's his overtime rate. Multiplied by the number of hours worked overtime, which is what we have to calculate. So we know that the overtime wage is what? $96. His overtime rate, how do we determine overtime rate? It says overtime is twice the payment of the regular time. So the regular payment per hour is $3. And if he works overtime, he's paid twice the payment. So the overtime rate will be to multiply 2 by 3. So he's now getting $6 per hour when he works overtime. So how many hours will that equivalent to or equate to? So therefore, let's call the number of hours work overtime X. So this is 96 is equal to 2 by 3, 6 times X. And therefore, to get X as a subject, I divide 96 by 6. When I divide 6 into 96, I'm going to get 16 hours. Will be the number of hours worked overtime by this man. Right? So this answer for 20 is B. So make sure we understand wages, because you know they like to bring the wages in the consumer arithmetic. And again, common type question you are going to see. So make sure we understand it. Alright, let's move on to 21. Right, so 21, we have straightforward and very common. 7 times the product of two numbers A and B may be written as, so easy. 7 times the product of two numbers A and B, that's 7AB. Whose answer there is E? 21. Straightforward and very common question you see in the exam. Let's move on to 22. One over 2x plus 1 over 3x is equal to that, to what? 1 over 2x plus 1 over 3x. So of course, when we're adding two fractions, algebraic fractions, or you just want to adding or subtracting fractions, the first thing we do is find the LCM. Another common question. The LCM of 2x and 3x, the LCM of 2 and 3, lowest common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. But we are also going to maintain the variable x. So 6x will be your LCM, lowest common multiple. And what I'm going to do is to divide my denominator 2x into my LCM. So 2x into 6x will give me 3. I'm going to multiply 3 by 1 to give me 3. Bring down the addition sign. I'm going to divide 3x into 6x, which will give me 2. And I'm going to multiply 1 by 2 to give me 2. And therefore, 3 plus 2 will give me 5 over 6x, whose answer for 22 is B. Alright, so make sure we know that question, because they love to bring this question. It's a regular one. Right, let's look at next 23. Another regular question. What is the value of x squared plus 3y over xy if x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 2? So, this is a simple case of replacing x and y with the values given. X is 4, y is 2. So where I see x, I'm going to replace it with 4 in brackets squared plus. Where I see y, I'm going to replace it with 2. So this is 3y, which is 3 times 2 over xy, which is x multiplied by y. 4 multiplied by 2. So we're going to get what? 4 squared is 4 by 4, 16 plus 3 by 2 is 6 over 4 by 2 is 8. And 16 plus 6 will give us 22 all over 8. And we can simplify that. Of course, I can simplify this in proper fraction. 2 into 22 is 11, 2 into 8 is 4, 11 over 4, which we can convert into a mixed number, right? So 4 2s are 8, remainder 3. So 2 and 3/4 for question 23, that is D. Alright? So common questions, we want to make sure we can recognize. So let's look at 24. Another very common question, very common. Almost every day you see this question, or every other year. You want to solve for x, you have 5, the 2x minus 1 is equal to 35, and we want to solve for x, so we know it's a simple equation. We know it's 5 by 2x, 10x, 5 by negative 1 is negative 5 is equal to 35, and I'm going to remove my negative 5 by adding 5 to both sides. So negative 5 plus 5 will leave me with 10x on the left. 35 plus 5 will give me 40. And I divide both sides by 10. X will be equal to 4. Whose answer for 24 is D. Right, let's look at 25. Another very common question. This here comes regularly. Straightforward. John has X marbles and Max has twice as many marbles as John. Max gave John 5 of his marbles. How many marbles John have? Pretty straightforward, right? So John, he has X marbles. Max has twice as many marbles as John. So twice as means 2 times X. Good? And Max gave John 5 of his marbles. So if Max gave John 5, then how many marbles will John have, right? So Max gave John 5. So if he gave John 5, how many marbles will John have? Just simply add 5 to X. Good? So therefore, John, so if Max gave John 5 marbles, then John will have X plus 5. Yeah? Whose answer for 25 is B. Yeah? So let's move on to 26. If a is equal to 3 and ab is equal to 6, then what is a squared minus b squared? So let's make sure again, this question we can understand how to obtain the result here. A is equal to 3 and b is equal to 6, then ab is equal to 6. Then what is a squared minus b squared? So of course, we already know a is equal to 3, so we can replace. When we see a in a squared minus b squared, we have to replace that a with 3, but we need to determine what is b. So if we have ab is equal to 6, I know if I replace a with 3, this becomes 3b is equal to 6. And I can now comfortably find the value of b. So this is 3b divided by 3, 6 divided by 3, so b is equal to 2. So I know that b is equal to 2 and a is equal to 3. So therefore, a squared minus b squared will be what? I'm going to replace a with 3. So 3 in bracket squared. Subtract, I'm going to replace b with 2. 2 in bracket squared. So I'm going to get 3 squared, 3 by 3. Subtract 2 by 2. 9 subtract 4, which is 5. So 26c. Right, so common questions that we can see in the examination. Alright, so let's look at (27). Right, so matrices, good. So if we have this matrix, then the order of A. So order of A, we know it's a number of rows. So you have 1, 2, 5, 4, 6, 1, 3, 7, negative 2, 3, 2, 9. We know the order of any matrix. The order of a matrix is the number of rows by the number of columns. Your rows always run horizontally. So the number of rows here will be what? 1, 2, 3 rows. Multiplied by the number of columns. The columns run vertically. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So therefore, the order of this matrix will be a 3 by 4 matrix. His answer is C, 27. Let's look at 28. So 28, we have this 2 by 2 matrix and they want us to find the determinant of that matrix. And of course, we have to know the formula to find the determinant. So we have 8, 6, 7, 5, and let's call this is matrix P. So to find the determinant of matrix P, it is the formula AD minus BC. And we know that this is A, B, C, and D. So I'm going to replace A with 8 in brackets, D with 5 in brackets, subtract B with 6 in brackets, and C with 7 in brackets. So we're going to get 8 by 5 is 40, subtract 6 by 7 is 42, which will give us the determinant as negative 2, whose answer is B. Let's look at 29. So common questions. Right, don't forget everyone to make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Muyo Math, right? So let's look at 29. Right, this here is a vector question. If the vectors P and Q are 3, 2 column vectors and negative 1, 4 respectively, then P subtract 2Q is another common question. So you have P, 3, 2, and Q, negative 1, 4. And they want us to determine what is P, subtract 2Q. Alright, so you have to be very careful here. what we're going to do is to work out 2q, and then we're going to obtain the result for p subtract 2q. So let's work out 2q first. So 2q is 2 times the column vector negative 1, 4. So of course 2q we're going to multiply 2 by each of the elements within this column vector. 2 by negative 1 is negative 2, 2 by 4 is 8. So 2q is negative 2, 8. So if I have to determine now p subtract 2q is going to be p, which is 3, 2, subtract 2q, which is negative 2, 8. So remember it's p, you work out p, you work out 2q, then you subtract them. Alright? So don't think of this as negative 2 times q. p, 2q, subtract. So let's subtract. So this will be 3 subtract negative 2, so we look at our vector subtraction here, and this is 2 subtract 8. So a minus by a minus is a plus, so I'm going to get 3 plus 2 and 2 subtract 8, which will give me 5 negative 6. Whose answer there for 29 is D. Alright? So let's move on to question 30. Right, so another vector question. Item 30 refers to the following diagram of a triangle OLM in which R is the midpoint of OL, T is the midpoint of OM. Further, OR has magnitude A, vector OR has magnitude A, and vector OT has magnitude B. They want us to determine what is vector RM. So let's quickly redraw this diagram. So this is O, this is L, this is M. They told us that R is a midpoint, so we know it lies at the middle of the line OL, and we'll divide OL in half. So therefore it means if vector OR has magnitude A, it means vector RL will also be A. Good? It says as well that T is the midpoint of OM, so T is here, which means T will divide OM in half and into 2 equal vectors, OT and TM. Yeah? So if vector OT is B, then we know that this vector TM is also B. Same thing, if OR is A, then we know RL is also A. Good? Yeah? Midpoint. That will allow that to happen. So we want to determine now what is a vector RM. So to find vector RM, I'm going to connect R to M. Alright, that's my vector RM. I'm going to put my arrow to indicate my direction from R to M. R to M falls within this triangle where I have the magnitudes of 2 vectors on that triangle. So I have the magnitude of OM, which is now B plus B, 2B. And I have the magnitude of OR, which is A. So to find RM is going to be pretty straightforward. I can say RO, vector RO, plus vector OM will give us vector RM. Vector RO, this is vector OR, so vector RO will be moving in the opposite direction, so I'm going to change the sign of my magnitude. This becomes negative A plus vector OM will be 2B. So vector RM is the same as negative A plus 2B, or if you switch it around as what they have there as a result, it's going to be 2B subtract A is equal to RM. So RM is 2B subtract A, which is B. Alright? So the vector question. So let's make sure we can comfortably recognize and answer that accordingly. Good? So let's look at 31. Given 1 millimeter is equal to 1 over 1,000 meters, what is 2,500? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we know that if 1 all over, we have 1 millimeter is equal to 1 over 1,000 meters, then 2,500 milliliters in meters is. Good? So we know that if 1 milliliter, write it as ml, is equal to 1 over 1,000 meters, then what is 2,500 milliliters? What is that equal to in meters? So again, if you know what 1 is equal to, then we can find what 2,500 is equal to, which is 1 all over 1,000 times 2,500. Yeah? And that will give us what? 0 goes 0 goes 0 goes 0 goes 25 all over 10, which is 2.5 meters. Whose answer there is B. So, let's look at the next. So we have here 32. The volume of a cube whose edge is 10 centimeters is, so for 32, the volume of your cube, that's going to be what? 10 by 10 by 10. And that, of course, will be, so we have a cube, so that's going to be 1,000 cm cubes. So we have this cube here, this is your cube. So this will be 10 cm by 10 cm by 10 cm, which will give us 1,000 cm cube. Alright? Let's look at 33. So that's D. So let's look at 33. So we have a trapezium here. What's the area of that trapezium? So the area of that trapezium, we're going to have here 2 parallel sides. We have the perpendicular height. This is 5 centimeters. This is 18 centimeters. This is 8 centimeters. We have P, S, R, Q. So what is the area of that trapezium? We need to find the area of a trapezium. The area of a trapezium is simply a half multiplied by the sum of the 2 parallel sides by the perpendicular height. So that's the area of your trapezium. So this will be a half times the sum of your 2 parallel sides. 2 parallel sides are 8 plus 18 by your perpendicular height, which is 5. So this is a half times 8 plus 18 will give us 26 times 5. So we know that this will be 2 into 2 is 1, 2 into 26, 13, and 13 by 5 will give us 65 centimeters squared will be the area of the trapezium, which is B. So let's look at 34. So again, this is another common question. They sometimes will bring different variations of the trapezium question. So make sure you know most important the formula for the area of a trapezium. So let's look at 34. So at a party, a number of guests were served 15 liters of champagne. Each guest had 2 glasses of champagne and each glass held 150 milliliters. Good? Assuming no spillage, how many guests were at the party? So we have at a party, the number of guests were served with 15 liters. So all the guests, so 15 liters of champagne was served to all the guests. Good? Each guest had 2 glasses of champagne and each glass held 150 milliliters. Okay? So therefore, total number of guests they were served with 15 liters of champagne. Good? Now each guest had 2 glasses of champagne and each glass had 150 milliliters. So therefore, we know that so each guest, if they had 2 glasses of champagne and each glass 150 milliliters, so therefore 2 glasses will be what? 2 by 150, which will be what? That will be 300 milliliters. Good? So each guest, they will serve 300 milliliters of champagne. Now, let's convert 300 milliliters into liters. Yeah? And what we will do is to divide that into 15 liters so we can determine the total number of guests. Right? So let's convert our milliliters to liters. So we know that 1000 milliliters is equal to 1 liter. Yeah? So therefore, how much is 300 milliliters? So therefore, if 1000 milliliters is 1 liter, 1 milliliter will be 1 over 1000, and 300 milliliters will be 1 over 1000 times 300, which will be what? That's 3 over 10, which is 0.3 liters. So each guest, they will serve 0.3 liters of champagne. And if the total amount of champagne served to your guests was 50 liters, then the total number of guests will be, total number of guests will be to divide 0.3 into your 15 liters, 0.3 liters into your 15 liters, that's 15 divided by 0.3. Yeah, and when we divide 15 by 0.3, that will give us 50 guests. Alright, so 50 guests, which will be C. Alright, let's move on to 35. So we have here again, this is another common question. And this one we did before was also common. Saw it a few times. So we have here, the perimeter of a square is 56 centimeters. What is the area in cm squared? So you have a square, you know all 4 sides are the same, and if the perimeter of the square is 56, so we know if this is x, this is also x, that's x. So the perimeter is distance around, so that will be 4x is equal to 56. So we can determine the length of one side. X will be simply to divide 56 by 4, and 56 by 4, that will give us 14, yeah? And therefore we know that each side of that square will be 14 centimeters. And therefore, if we are asked to determine what is the area of the square, area of square will be 14 by 14, which will give us 14 by 14 is 196 centimeters squared, right? Which will be D. Let's look at 36. So 36 again. Like to bring questions involved in the circle. The circumference of a circle is 154 centimeters. Given that pi is 22 over 7, what is the diameter of the circle? So the circumference, and make sure you know what the formula for area and circumference of a circle. Circumference is 2 pi r, area is pi r squared. So the circumference is what? 2 pi r. You told us that the circumference of the circle is 154 centimeters, which is 2 pi r. You told us pi is 22 over 7. So if pi is 22 over 7, let me replace pi here with 22 over 7 times r. That's 2 over 1. 2 over 1 by 22 over 7 will give me 44 over 7. Will be the radius. Yeah? That will help me to find the radius. How am I going to determine the radius now? I'm going to divide 154 by 44 over 7. So I'm dividing both sides by 44 over 7. I'm going to get 154 multiplied by 7 over 44. And when I work that out, that will help me to get the radius. So let me see. Let me see 154. Right, so that's 154 divided by 44 is 3.5 times 7. Right, so the radius here, the radius is 24.5. So we have a circle. We just worked out the circumference, it is 154. We just worked out the radius of this circle, which is 24.5 centimeters. But then they ask, so what is the diameter of the circle? So the diameter will be to multiply the 24.5 by 2, which will give you, so the diameter therefore will be 24.5 times 2, which is 49 centimeters. So that will be the diameter of that circle. Yeah? Whose answer there is C. But let's look at 37. Right, so this is another common question, and sometimes it will bring variations to this question also. So we have here, let's see what they're asking in relation to this question. So items 37 refer to the following diagram, which shows a compound shape that consists of a triangle of height 4 centimeters resting on a square. If the area of the triangle is 14 cm squared, what is the area of the compound shape? Alright? So what's the area of that compound shape? So we have this compound shape here. So we have the height, it is 4 centimeters. They told us that the area of the triangle is 14 cm squared. So we know the area of this triangle is 14 cm squared. So what we can do is determine what is the base of this triangle, which will represent one side of your square. So remember, this is a square, right? Okay, so this side, let me put a stroke here. This side will be equal to this side, equal to that side, equal to that side. This here represents the base of the triangle. So let's find the base. So we know the area of triangle will be what? That is base by height all over 2. They gave us the area of the triangle, which is what? 14 cm squared. Base by, the height of that triangle is 4 centimeters. All over 2. So I can now work out what is the base, which will help me to determine what's the length on one side of the square. So I can say here now 2 into 2 is 1, 2 into 4 is 2. I can do that here because there's a multiplication sign separating these two terms in the numerator. So I can divide 2 into 4 to give you 2. So this is 2 times the base is equal to 14. And therefore to get the base by itself, I'm going to divide 14 by 2, which is 7. So the base of this triangle is 7 centimeters. That's the base of that triangle. The height is 4 centimeters. So therefore, when they ask what is the area of the compound shape, therefore the area of the compound shape is equal to the area of your triangle plus the area of square. The area of the triangle, as they mentioned, is 14 cm squared, so you know that. And the area of the square will be side by side. So that's 14 plus 49. Yeah, and 14 plus 49, we're going to get 63 cm squared. Will be the area of your compound shape. So make sure they love to bring different variations of this question. So let's make sure we understand. Alright, let's move on to 38. Right, on Even Trinidad, the time on a pilot's watch is 2300 hours. When you arrive at his destination, the same time zone on the next day, his watch showed 300 hours. How many hours did the flight take? So the time here is more or less looking at 24 hour time. So what are we going to do? So clearly, we're looking at if it's 12, 12 lunchtime, that's 12 noon. So we have 12 noon. So see that we counted in that 24-hour time zone. So if it's 12 noon, we know we are accustomed saying 1 p.m., then you go to 2 p.m., 3 p.m. But see now we counted in that 24-hour time zone, it's going to be 12 noon, then this will be 13, 14, 100 hours, 15, and so on. And going all the way up to 23. Alright? 2300 hours. So 2300 hours, of course, this is 24 hours, right? So that's a full day, and then we move into the next day now. So therefore, this will be what? This will be 100 hours, 200 hours, and we're going to what? 300 hours, right? So therefore, when they ask how many hours did the flight take, so this will be what? 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Alright? So the flight took 4 hours. Alright? So we counted in that time zone, 24-hour time zone, right? So let's move on to 39. And this is a common question, relatively common. So we're looking at 39. Mrs. Clark arranged 15 test scores of her students in order of size and selected the 8th score for reporting purposes. Which of the following statistical measures did Mrs. Clark obtain? In this case, the statistical measure, because she has 15 test scores and her student and she selected the 8th score for reporting purposes. So therefore, we'll have the data here, 15 test scores. So 1 all the way to 15. And the 8th score was selected. So this is the 8th score here. Alright? So, how are we going to determine? This is the 8th score here. Alright? So what statistical measure will help us to determine the age score? That statistical measure will be the median. Alright? Because we know to find the position of median, an important formula is going to be the median. I'm showing you why, because this will be using the formula a half times n plus 1. Yeah? So you have 15 test scores. Yeah? This is a half times 15 plus 1, a half times 16, which will give us 8. So that will represent the 8th position. And that will be the median. So this is the median. So once we know the 8th position, we can determine what's the value of the median. Okay? So that's D, 39D. So if you see this question, you will automatically be answer. Well, read it properly first. Yeah, we know it's D, but I'm showing you why it's D. Alright, let's look at 40. Alright, well I know that this year, they love to bring these to the cumulative frequency curve. So let's see. I hope we can see that clearly. Let's see what we can make of it. Items 40 and 41 refer to the following diagram, which shows a cumulative frequency curve based on the marks of 200 students who took a driving test. Right? It states here that the median mark scored by the 200 students is, what's the median mark? So remember, the median mark is this. If you have a cumulative frequency curve, the median mark is, so this is cumulative frequency, yeah? And this here is the total frequency. So that's the total frequency of 200, which I'm going to denote by n. So to determine the median mark, this is the mark axis here, this is mark. For me to determine the median mark, this is what I do. I need to determine first what's the position of the median. So to find the position of the median, I'm going to use a half n. So a half of 200 is 100. So I locate 100 on my cumulative frequency axis, which is, now this is 0, this is 40 here, this must be 40 here, this is 80, this is 120, 160, 200, yeah? So we know that this is 20 here, 40, 60, 80, this will be 100. Okay, so when we locate 100, what are we going to do to determine what's the median mark? So I'll just put here 20, so we know that's 20, this is 40, 60, 80, 100, right? So therefore, to find the median mark, I'm going to draw a line across, touch the cumulative frequency curve, and then I'm going to travel now to the mark axis. And Q2 will represent your median mark. So I find 100, which is the position of the median. I draw a line across. I'm going to touch my curve, and then I'm going to travel now towards the mark axis. Alright? And what is that value? If this is 30, this will be 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. And it looks like it's halfway between 37 and 38. So that can be, the answer here will be 37.5. So the median mark here is 37.5. So we find a half of 200, which is 100, that's the position, but to find what's the median mark, remember that's the mark axis, so I have to know what you call interpolate, moving from the y-axis to the x-axis to determine what's the median mark, alright? So let's look at the next The highest mark scored in the test was. So the highest mark, of course, just simply this is the mark axis. So this is the highest value of the cumulative frequency axis, and that simply corresponds to 60. Yeah? So this 200 here corresponds to 60. So the highest mark scored on the test will be 60. So that part is there pretty straightforward. Alright? Okay, so let's look at 42. So in a box there are 8 red, 7 blue and 6 green marbles. 1 marble is picked up randomly. What is the probability that it is neither blue nor green? So you have a box with 8 red, 7 blue and 6 green. Good? 1 marble is picked up at random. What is the probability that it is neither blue nor green? If it's neither blue nor green, you have a box with those 3 colors. If it's neither blue nor green, then it has to be red. Good? It's neither blue nor green, so it has to be red. So therefore, for 42, the probability that it's neither blue nor green is what? Remember how we find probability? It's a number of ways an event can occur over the total number of possible ways. Good? So what's the probability that it is neither blue nor green? So that means if it's neither blue nor green, it's red. So the number of ways we can pull a red marble would be 8 ways. Over the total number of possible ways would be total number of marbles in the bag, in the box. So how many marbles we have in the box? It's going to be 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 plus 6 will be 21. Whose answer there is E. Alright, so make sure we're familiar, everyone. So very important. So we want to ensure that when we see these questions, we can comfortably answer and get the result. Right? So don't forget everyone to make sure you like, share and subscribe to Moyo Man. Right? Okay, let's look at 43. Right, so we have this pie chart. So common question again, they like to bring the pie chart, different variations of it. And it says items 43 refer to the following pie chart, which shows the popular games played by 720 students. How many students played cricket? So how many students played cricket? Alright? So when you're dealing with the pie chart, you always want to show a proportional relationship. Alright? Between, in this case, we deal with students. And what we can do is to show that proportional relationship between students and angles. Alright? This football, this is 90 degrees. That's clear. Tennis, this is 36 degrees. Good? But we have basketball, it's not represented in degrees, it's represented as a percentage. Good? So what we need to do is to also convert that into degrees. So when we convert that into degrees now, we'll have these 3 segments, these 3 sectors, which is your football, basketball and tennis, all represented in degrees, and now you can work out cricket in degrees. When you work out cricket in degrees, then you can determine how many students. So first, let us convert, let's make sure football, tennis and basketball are all in degrees. So it means we have to convert basketball from 30% to degrees. And how are we going to do that? We know that a relationship, 360 degrees, good? Or let me write it this way, 100% is equal to 360 degrees. 100% is a full circle is equal to 360 degrees. So you want what is 30%. So 1% is 360 all over 100. And therefore, that will be, of course, these two zeros go. 30%, once I know what 1% is equal to, what is 30% in degrees? That will be 36 all over 10 times 30, which will give me, and 3 by 36 will give me 108 degrees. So your 38% is the same as 108 degrees. This is 108 degrees here. So we now see where football, tennis, and basketball are all in degrees. So let me determine now what is cricket in degrees. So therefore I know that will be, so cricket will be, that will be 360 degrees, subtract 90 degrees plus 108 degrees plus 36 degrees. So that is what? 360 in brackets 90 plus 108 plus 36 will give me 234 degrees. So let me subtract 234 from 360 so I can determine how many degrees my sector cricket represents. That is what? 360 subtract 234 will give me 126 degrees. So cricket will be 126 degrees, right? So now that I know cricket is 126 degrees, let me go determine how many students that is equal to. Alright? And how are we going to determine that? Simply use our relationship, proportional relationship. Alright? We know that 360 degrees represents the entire circle, and the total amount of students who play the popular games are 720 students. So you can establish a relationship between degrees, 360 degrees, that's for full circle. Total number of students, which is a full circle as well, is 720 students. So let's determine now how many students will 126 degrees equal to. So 1 degree will be 720 all over 360, and therefore 126 degrees will be, when I divide 720 by 360, I'm going to get, that is equal to 2. That's 2 students, so therefore 126 degrees in students, in terms of students, will be to multiply 126 by 2. Now what is 126 by 2? That will give me how many students? 252 students. Right, so get familiar with these sector questions and be very careful. You want to establish relationships. Remember that is 30%, so you have to convert that into degrees, and then you can find out what is cricket in degrees and hence convert it into a number of students, which is C. Alright, so let's look at 44. So common questions we can see in the exam. That sector question is also a common one, so make sure we pay attention to these questions. If we see it, we know how to handle it, right? If they make minor changes, you still know what to do. Right, items 44 refer to the following two-way table, which shows the ways in which 200 students in a group are transported to school on a particular day. So you have males, you have females, and you have the different ways that they have those males and females who take buses, who take taxis, who walk, and you have the total number of males, total number of females, total number of students. A student is picked at random from the group. What is the probability that the student is male who traveled to school by taxi on that day? So that's a probability. Probability male who traveled by taxi. Remember, what's probability? Probability is the number of ways in which an event can occur over the total number of possible ways. Right. So it says here a student is picked at random from the group. What is the probability that a student, so student means you have is a combination of male and female, right? That's going to be a total combination of male and female. Yeah? So therefore a student is picked. So what is the probability that a student is male who traveled to school by taxi? So the number of ways in which that can occur, where there's a male and who traveled by taxi, the number of ways in which that can occur is what? 50 ways. That's all? So you have 50 ways all over the total number of ways, over the total number of students, because they ask a student is picked at random. Yeah? So you're dealing with a total number of students, which will be 200 students comprising of both male and female. Yeah? So therefore, we know that this is a quarter 44A. Okay? Let's look at 45. So this one is real common. You do this, I'm sure you may see this tomorrow. This is a very, very common one. The point where a linear function crosses the horizontal axis, right, will simply be, if it crosses the horizontal axis, this is the horizontal axis, which is the x-axis. So when it crosses the horizontal axis, that is known as your x-intercept. Whose answer is B. So that's your x-intercept when it crosses the horizontal axis. So let's look at 46. 46. Another common question, very common. It says here, the equation of a line that crosses the vertical axis at the point 0, 5 and that has a gradient of 4 is. So if you have to find the equation of a line, you're using y is equal to mx plus c. Alright? And to find the equation of a line, we need to find m and we need to find c. Already they told us what's the gradient. The gradient is 4. And we know to find the value of c, we're going to use a point on the line which they gave us, 0, 5. So I know that this 0 represents x, 5 represents y. So I'm going to replace this y with 5. I'm going to replace this m with 4. I'm going to replace x with 0. This is m multiplied by x. So this is 4 multiplied by 0 plus c. So 5 is equal to 4 by 0 is 0 plus c, and therefore c is 5. So we know that the equation of the line, now that I know what is c and I know m, the equation of my line is y is equal to 4x plus 5. Whose answer there is c. So that's the equation of my line. Very common question. Yeah? Let's look at 47. So 47, another very common question. I'm sure you're doing past papers, you see this all the time. So 47, which of the following graphs represents a linear function? A linear function, it is always of the form y equal to mx plus c, and it is always sloping. Whether it's a left-hand slope or it can be a right-hand slope, right? So it can be looking like this or it can slope that way. So obviously our answer will be a left-hand slope. That's the option they give us, which is of the two that are linear, so we know it's A. Alright, let's look at 48. 48. Very, very common question. Another very common question. They love to bring this one. I love to bring this one. Right? Items 48 refer to the following graph of a quadratic function. the coordinates of the turning point. So that's where the curve turns. It turns here. That's where it turns. This is the turning point. So that's when the curve turns at this point. So they ask the coordinates. So the coordinates in this case, it's simply, this is 2 and 4. So the coordinates of your turning point will be 2, 4. Whose answer there is D. Very, very common question. And let's look at 49. So it says here 49. Coordinate geometry, right? I'm sure you're going to see this is another very common question. 49. A line L is parallel to the line 3x minus 7y minus 9 is equal to 0. What is the gradient of the line L? So you have a line L, that's a line L, and it's parallel to a line whose equation is 3x minus 7y minus 9 is equal to 0. What is the gradient of L? So, remember when lines are parallel, their gradients are the same. Anytime lines are parallel, their gradients are the same. And for this line, whose equation is 3x minus 7y minus 9, from this equation I can find the gradient. What I need to do is to take this equation and convert it into this form, where m is the number in front of x representing your gradient. Alright? So, what I have to do here is make sure I take this equation and then we convert it into this form, y equal to mx plus c. So I need to make y the subject, and this is where your knowledge of transposition comes into play. So let me make y the subject. So I'm going to remove positive 3x and I'm going to remove negative 9. So negative 7y, positive 3x comes across to the right as negative 3x, and negative 9 comes across to the right as positive 9. Yeah? And of course, for me to find y, I need to, by itself, to get it by itself, make it the subject, I need to remove this negative 7 in front of my y. So to remove that negative 7, I'm going to divide this side by negative 7. What I do to one side, I do to the other. I divide the other side by negative 7 also. So when my two negative 7s divided to each other to give me 1, y is now the subject. Remember, you want to get it in this form. Now, negative 3x plus 9 over negative 7, what I'm going to do here is to separate it. So I'm going to write negative 3x over negative 7, and I'm going to write plus 9 all over negative 7. And therefore, this will simplify to become y is equal to a minus divided by a minus is a plus. So I'm going to get 3x over 7. A plus divided by a minus is a minus 9 over 7. And now I can clearly identify what's the gradient of this line. So the gradient of this line is the number located in front of x, which I can write as 3 over 7x. Alright, so the gradient is this 3 over 7 located in front of your x. That's the gradient of this line here. M is equal to 3 over 7. Alright? So first, what we did is to make sure we made y the subject to find the gradient of this line. And because these two lines are parallel, as you see mentioned in the question, it means that the gradient of this line L is also 3 over 7. So the answer for question 49 is C. Alright? So make sure you know how to take an equation, make y the subject of the formula, which will then help us to find the gradient. And what they do, they bring different variations. They may talk about when they are perpendicular, or they may talk about when they are parallel. In this case, an example where they are parallel. So when they're perpendicular, you find a negative reciprocal. If you know the gradient of one line, you use a negative reciprocal to find the gradient of the other. Alright? So 49C. Alright, common question. Let's look at 15. So 15, right, another very common question. Very, very common question. So g of x is equal to 7x minus 3 over 5. Very common. What is g of negative 6? We know that this is simply to replace x with negative 6. So this is 7 times negative 6. Just replacing x with negative 6 in brackets. Minus 3 over 5. 7 by negative 6 is negative 42. Minus 3 over 5. Negative 42 subtract 3 will be negative 45. All over 5, which will give me negative 9. So if you see this question tomorrow, just make sure you know how to work it out, because sometimes it may change and put instead of g to negative 6, it may place another number inside of the bracket. If you see g to the power of negative 6, you know how to work it out to get our result, right? So that's E. So let's look at 51. Right? So again, your functions, and you know they like to bring the mapping diagrams. Of course, you have different variations of your mapping diagrams. So make sure you know you can recognize your mapping diagrams. And in this case, it just asks which is the best, another common question, following which of the following best describes a function. So using a method of trial and error, so I have these 4 functions which will help me to link my domain, which is x, onto my codomain, which is y, or range. So I'm going to take 2, if you try A, let's see if it will work with A. If I replace x with 2, I'm going to get what? Y is equal to 2 plus 3, which gives me 5. If I replace x with 5, I'm going to get y is equal to 5 plus 3, which is 8. Yeah? If I replace it with 8 plus 3, which is 11. If I replace it with 11 plus 3, 14. So clearly 51 is E. Alright? Because that allows the domain to be mapped onto the range or codomain. Alright? Again, they may bring different variations of your mapping diagram. Okay? Let's look at 52. Again, functions, another common question. So the range of f of x for the domain. So very, very common. This is a real common one. So we know that if you have a domain, I'll put it in terms of a mapping diagram. You have negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Just like what we did with the previous question. You have your range. The range is what you want to find, which is your y coordinates. This is the domain x. This is your range y. You have the function which connects the domain to your range. Good? So what we're going to do, where I see x, I'm going to replace it with negative 2. So this is the same as this f is such that x can be rewritten as y is equal to x cubed. So this and y are the same thing, right? Or sometimes they use f of x. They're all the same. So this, and this, those 3 are the same. They mean the same thing. So if y is equal to x cubed, what is y when x is negative 2? Negative 2 cubed is negative 2 by negative 2 by negative 2, which is negative 8. When it's negative 1, what will I get? Negative 1 by negative 1 by negative 1, which is negative 1. When it's 0, what will I get? 0 by 0 by 0 is 0. When it's 1, 1 by 1 by 1 is 1. And when it's 2, 2 by 2 by 2 is 8. So my answer is negative 8 negative 1, 0, 1, and 8, which is D. Alright, so make sure you're familiar. So that's 52. Let's look at question 53. So common questions, and I'm sure you're going to see a number of these questions in the exam tomorrow. So let's make sure we can recognize another very common question. I love to bring this also. Again, sometimes I may bring where you're reflecting about the x-axis or reflecting about the y-axis. In this case, which transformation maps PQR onto P prime, Q prime, R prime? This simply is a reflection. You have a mirror line here, and what you're doing there is reflecting about that mirror line. So it's reflection. B. 53. Let's look at 54. In which of the following polygons does the sum of the measures of interior angles equal to the sum of the measures of exterior angles? Right? Another common question. Right? Again, sometimes we bring some variations to it, but of course the same concept, and that is a quadrilateral, because with a quadrilateral, which is a four-sided figure, we take this for example. All the exterior angles, all the angles outside, all exterior angles of any polygon must be equal to 360 degrees. So the exterior, it can be for any polygon, the sum of exterior angles of any polygon is 360. So the exterior angle, sum of exterior angles, the sum of exterior angles will be what? 360. And for a quadrilateral, the sum of interior angles, all four interior angles will also be equal to 360. Yeah? So the sum of interior angles will also be 360. So when they ask which of the following polygons are the sum of the measures of interior angles equal the sum of the measures of exterior angles, that will be your quadrilateral. Alright? So make sure we know that. Okay? Right, so let's look at 55. Another common question, very common. What is the image of the line y equal to x when it is rotated anti-clockwise about the origin through an angle of 90 degrees? Very common. So you have here, this is your line y equal to x. If I'm going to rotate this in an anti-clockwise means I'm moving this way. That's anti-clockwise. And if I move that to an angle of what? 90 degrees. Let me take this half of the line, let me move it to an angle of 90 degrees. Alright, that's me moving anti-clockwise. This half of the line. This is the origin here. Let me take the other half and move it through an angle of what? 90 degrees. See the 90 degrees here, right? And 90 degrees here. Good? So this is what we expect to get when we rotate it through an angle of 90 degrees in an anti-clockwise direction. So this line here is represented by y is equal to minus x. Whose answer there is D? And this is a very, very common question. Alright? So make sure you know. Alright, let's look at 56. Another very common question you see in the exam. Dealing with again translation. In the diagram, the translation by which AB is mapped onto A prime, B prime is represented by. So we have AB is mapped onto A prime, B prime. For us to determine what is the translation, what's the translation? a translation, your equation for a translation is, let's go with A and A prime. It's going to be the object plus your translation equals image. Let's go with A and A prime. If we do it for B and B prime, we get the same answer. Let's go with A, which is 2, 5. We're going to move it from the row format, which is running this way, and we're going to convert it into the column format, 2, 5. This is A. That's your object. Plus your translation T. I'm going to represent it in terms of a column vector xy is equal to your image A prime. So I'm going to move it from the row format into the column format 4, 6. Done? So for me to find what is the translation T, I'm going to take A and move it over to the right hand side. So therefore, I'm going to subtract A from both sides. So this becomes what? T, which is a translation xy, is equal to A prime, which is 4, 6, subtract, and moving from the left to the right, so I change the sign to subtraction, A, which is 2, 5. And all I'm going to do now is carry out my vector subtraction. So this is 4, subtract 2, and this is 6, subtract 5, which will give me 4 subtract 2 is 2, 6 subtract 5 is 1, so the answer there will be B for your translation. Alright, let's look at 57. So 57, so common questions, and let's make sure we sit in the exam tomorrow, we'll know what to do, right? At the end of the exam, we'll be smiling. Right, so common question, again, different variations of this one as well too. Now we have to be very careful, right? With this question, it says, in the triangle, angle BAC is 30 degrees, and AB is 40 meters. The length of AC in meters is. Now, so this question, we have this right angle triangle. This is A, B, C. The acute angle here is 30 degrees. This is 40 meters. Okay? We have to be very careful here because students may use this acute angle along with their trig ratios to help them to find the length of AC. If you do that, you're going to see where, which is not wrong if you do that to find AC, but it is not in any of the options. So to help you to determine what is the length of AC, we cannot use this acute angle. We have to use this, because if you use this acute angle, you're going to see where those options, the answer you're going to get using that 30-degree angle to find AC will not be in any of the options. So you have to use, and I can show you so you can see, if you decide to go 30, and I'll show you why. And to show you what we're going to use to help us get the answer in that in the list of options there. If we decided to go 30, you would have said, alright, this would have been opposite. This is hypotenuse, this is adjacent. You would have said that, right? And then you would have said, alright, I want to find AC. So I'm going to use, I want to find adjacent, and I have information for hypotenuse. What links adjacent and hypotenuse? The trig function will be cos. So you're going to say cos theta is equal to sine adjacent all over hypotenuse. And then you'll substitute and write cos 30 degrees is equal to AC all over 40. And we know our trigs, then you'll cross multiply here, and you'll get AC is equal to 40 cos 30 degrees. Now if we look at the option, now this is not wrong what we did here, but if you look, it's not in any of the options, right? 40 cos 30 is not there. We have 40 cos 60, right? Not 40 cos 30. So we know that this cannot be used even though it's right. So what is the other option to help us to get the answer in our list of options there? We have another acute angle. And that is the acute angle we're going to use. So we're going to find this acute angle here. Sum of triangles of a triangle are to give 180. So I'm going to say 30 plus 90 is 120. 120 from 180 is 60 degrees. So that is the acute angle I'm going to use. And look at it here now. And I'm going to label my triangle based on this acute angle. So this will be opposite. This is the side hypotenuse. It's opposite the right angle. And this remaining side is the adjacent side. Good? And you want to find opposite, which is AC, given information for hypotenuse. So what links opposite and hypotenuse? What trig ratio? What trig function? That will be sine theta is equal to side opposite all over hypotenuse. And this will now be sine 60 degrees is equal to your side opposite, which is AC, over your hypotenuse, which is 40. You put sine 60 over 1, and you know to find AC, you're going to what? Cross multiply. So you're going to get 1 by AC is AC. And this is 40 multiplied by sine 60, or 40 sine 60. And 40 sine 60 is there, whose answer for 57 is A. Alright? So it's 40 sine 60. So you have to be very careful. If you see this question, again, just make sure you read it carefully. You might try one variation, see it doesn't work, but just remember there's another acute angle. Alright? Okay, let's look at 58. So 58. Right. Another common question. OAA prime. So you have OAA prime. OBB prime. OCC prime are straight lines. Triangle ABC is mapped onto triangle. So this is triangle ABC here. Let me highlight it. That's triangle ABC, and it is mapped onto triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. Right, so this is A, B, C, this is A prime, B prime, C prime. Good? So they ask, this is an enlargement. So A prime, B prime, C prime is an enlargement of ABC center O. They ask what is the scale factor. So for an enlargement to occur, you need a scale factor. And the scale factor is simply your scale factor is always image length over object length. So the image length, if you want to go with any, if you want to go with A prime, C prime as the image, you can go with any one of the lengths on the image. Alright, but of course it must correspond to that of the object. So if you decide to go with A prime, C prime as your length on the image, it must correspond to AC, which is the length on the object. And A prime, C prime, the length on the image will be how many units? 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Alright, so that's 4 over the number of units on the object. AC will be 1, 1, 2. So 2 units. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 units on the object, 1, 2. So 4 over, if I decided to go with B prime, C prime, and BC, this is what? 1, 2, and this is 1. So you're going to get the same 2. Alright? So therefore the scale factor here is 2. That's 58. So let's look at 59. Right, very, very common question. Right, this is another one where you have to be very careful. Very careful. This is another question where you have to be careful. Right, let's look at this one. Because I'm sure you're going to see, I'm not going to say that I'm sure, but it's highly possible you can see this tomorrow in your exam. Right, this year you have to make sure you pay attention to this. Now, what some students may do again, they ask you to, if y is 12 meters from z, you see that there, then base xy is what? Now, of course, some students may go the route of saying, alright, this is an angle of depression because it says angle, question 59 refers to the following diagram, which shows an angle of depression looking down of 35 degrees. Now, with angle of depression, once we have that Z shape, we can also determine the angle of elevation, which is 35 degrees here. Alright? And again, this 35 degrees fall within that right angle triangle. So that's your acute angle there. And what some students will do, which is not wrong, but it will not be the option. And I'll show you. This is what some students will obviously do. And be very careful if you see this question. Be very careful. So some students will tell themselves, alright, let me use these Z-shaped alternate angles to get this angle inside of the right angle triangle. And if they wanted to find xy, they will use now trigonometry in that right angle triangle to find xy, which is not wrong if you decide to go with that acute angle of 35 degrees. What you're doing there is not wrong. But you're going to see where the answer will not be in your options. Right? So I'll show you and then you'll look at what's the correct angle, acute angle we're going to use. So this will be side opposite. Opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. This is the adjacent side. So you want to find adjacent given information for opposite. And what links those two sides, what trig function, is going to be tan theta is equal to side opposite all over side adjacent. So you will proceed until the right. This is tan 35 degrees is equal to the side opposite 12 all over adjacent xy. But then to get xy by itself, which is what they ask you to find, you'll have to cross multiply, and you're going to get xy tan 35 degrees is equal to 12. But then to get xy by itself, and note it can come this way too. You can see this, remember there are different variations of this question, so you can see this as an answer. Alright? You can use the 35 degree angle. So don't rule this out. But if they bring the question exactly like this is what we have to be very careful with. So you'll tell yourself, alright, let me make xy the subject by dividing both sides by tan 35. Now this is not wrong. Xy is equal to 12 all over tan 35, which is not in the option. And this is not wrong to find xy. So we cannot use this 35 degree angle. We cannot use that acute angle to find xy. So we have to use another acute angle in this triangle, which is this angle here. That angle will help us to determine the length of xy, and we will see that in the option. Alright? So this is not wrong, but it can be used based on the options given. Yeah? So what we're going to do, we're going to use this acute angle here. So we're going to subtract, this is 90 degrees. So this is horizontal, vertical, so this is 90. So we're going to subtract 35 from 90, which is 55 degrees. Let me remove this opposite side, let me remove this adjacent side. I'm going to label this triangle based on this acute angle of 55 degrees. So this side here will be side opposite. The hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, and this side here will be the adjacent side. So I want to find side opposite, given information for side adjacent, and what trig function links opposite and adjacent, clearly tan theta. So tan theta is equal to side opposite all over side adjacent. So I'm going to replace my theta with 55 degrees. Tan 55 degrees is equal to my side opposite, which is xy, which is what you have to find, over the adjacent, which is 12. And of course, I'm going to put tan 55 over 1, and at this point, I'm going to cross multiply. 1 by xy will give me xy. And this will be 12 multiplied by tan 55. Or 12 tan 55 minutes. Whose answer, my option, will be D. So just be very careful with this question. And note, we are not going to use the 35 degrees. We're going to use the other acute angle of 55 degrees if you see this question. Alright? So let's look at the last question, 16. So this is a common question, and pay attention to it, right? So 16. This answer here is D, right? I think I circled it. So let's look at 16. Right, so another very common question. Very, very common. So we have this right angle, triangle. This is B, A, C. This is X degrees. This is Y degrees. This is 8 centimeters, 4 centimeters. Which trigonometric ratio is equal to 4 all over 8? So for us to determine trigonometric ratio, what are we going to do? Tell us to show it's 4 over 8. Again, to get 4 all over 8, we're going to label accordingly. So if I label with regards to the acute angle X, this will be side opposite. This is the hypotenuse, and this is the adjacent side. Good? So therefore, to get 4 over 8, it is going to be opposite all over hypotenuse, and opposite over hypotenuse will be sine theta. It's equal to side opposite all over hypotenuse. Sine theta will be my x degrees. So I will label based on this acute angle x. So sine x degrees is equal to my side opposite, which is 4, over my hypotenuse, which is 8. So sine x degrees will be equal to 4 over 8. So that will be E. Alright? So we went through 60 common multiple choice questions. Again, look at the video again. And let's make sure that we can recognize these common questions that we see in the exam. Let's hope that all of these questions come in your exam tomorrow. If that happens, well, then that's excellent. That's excellent, right? So, wishing everyone all the best in your exam tomorrow. Make sure you read your questions carefully and we answer correctly. All right. So, wishing everyone all the best. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Moyoman. Alright, take care. Have a good night, everyone.